Alright guys, welcome back to our green Strixhaven set review. Today we're going to be going over all of the green cards 1 to 5 with our same guest as before, Yanks, one of the moderators from my Twitch channel. So we've got some Twitch chat for you guys. Feel free to participate. Like I said, ratings from 1 to 5 based on playability in limited. Let's go ahead and get it started. We have an Accomplished Alchemist, a 2/5 for 4 that taps for any color mana. Any color is pretty key. Tap X mana, add X mana, where X is the amount of life you've gained this turn. Interesting. So,
yeah, so it
fits into the Witherbloom theme, right?
Yeah, definitely a card designed for Witherbloom, but also fits nicely in Quandrix that's trying to ramp a lot.
Yeah, if they've got any green life gain stuff. So far, what we've seen mostly is in black, but I think there's a lot of I think the problem that with what you're saying is I think a lot of the life gain cards are also going to be is 2-color, which we'll see in the Witherbloom colors as opposed to the Quandrix colors.
Yeah, I think even without it, they would be happy to play a 4-mana just 2/5 thing that ramps them.
Yeah, I was more talking about the second ability. This is definitely going to be playable in any of the green decks. It's just whether or not you're getting that extra huge ramp bonus.
Yeah, just taking a quick look through mono green. There's 5 spells in mono green that gain life.
Okay, that's actually a little bit more than I was expecting.
Sorry, 6. Now only one of them's at common. 4 of them are uncommon, one's a rare.
Okay. We'll have to get to those cards and see if they're worth playing.
Yeah. The card is good and is good. Not great, because I generally want my ramp to be cheaper than 4, but
agreed.
It's reasonable body anyway at 2/5.
Yeah, we'll have to see how big the green creatures get. So far from what we've seen, I haven't been super excited with a 5-drop that ramps, just because with the exception of Prismari, we're not seeing a ton of overly priced things.
Yeah, there's not a I'm just scanning through mono green again. There's one 8-drop, but
not something we really want to be running.
No, it's actually a pretty good card, but yeah, I think this card is good, not great. Still gonna play it, obviously, in any green deck. It's a decent body. Can fix your mana, help you splash. Probably got it around a 3.
Yeah, I think if you have a splash color, then this is really good. And I do think that there's actually going to be a fair amount of reason to want to splash with all of the multicolor cards in the deck. Or in the format, just because it allows you to dip into, like if you're Quandrix, it'll let you dip into the Witherbloom multicolor cards, which will be really nice. I think that is the main draw for me with this card. Yeah, I like it at about a 3. I agree with that. We have our first green lesson. It's a 3-mana rare. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order, and you gain 3 life. I don't think this is going to come up enough to like justify counting it with the other rare that we just saw. Yeah. But it is a free card if you learn it, and it gets you another card and gains you some life, which potentially could be very good in Witherbloom. And never bad in any deck to gain life.
Yeah, it turns your learn spell into like really delayed card draw, but you get a selection, of a creature card that's in your main deck potentially. So I'm pretty happy with this.
Yeah, I kind of don't necessarily see learn spell as a delayed. I don't see it as a delayed creature draw, because in my mind the learn spell should be pulling its own weight in the first place. So I see it as like, a partial card to use at a later date kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm speaking just in comparison to other lessons, where you're getting something that does something. This is getting something that gets you something that does something.
That's fair. I see what you're saying.
Like that extra step.
Okay.
But it grants you selection in exchange.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like, especially if you're ahead, like maybe some of your other lessons are not necessarily as good. You just want another body on the board. Seems great.
Yeah, I'm happy enough with this card. Again, not like pretty much all lessons, not putting it in the main deck.
I agree with that. It's definitely not good enough to be playing without getting it for free.
But it's one I'm pretty happy to have at green, and definitely taking this. It's high impact if I've got some hard stuff. Yeah, more lessons are tough to rate.
I was actually having this conversation earlier in another chat when I was like hanging out doing some of the work on the articles. It feels like these lessons to me, I don't want to rate them highly because they're not like good enough to be playing in your main deck, but they feel a lot like the first round of modal cards where they were like a land and a poopy spell, where it's like it's better than getting a land late, right? So like quality quality learn spells are going to be the determining factor, not the strength of your lessons. I'm kind of willing to have literally any lesson and be happy to get it. I do think it's sort of like one of those modal cards where it's not something you want to take super highly, but much higher than most people tend to, because they see like a 1/3 that gains them 2 life is like not very good, right? Which it isn't, but if it's in place of a land later or whatever, they become quite powerful.
Yeah, definitely agree. None of these are going to be super early picks, but this is above. But I think you take the good ones above the back end of your deck.
Definitely. I think that the lessons will be under drafted like the modals kind of were in the beginning.
Probably, yeah.
So I have this card at like a 2/5.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I think it's on the higher end of lessons, but it's also a rare, so that makes sense.
Yep, agreed.
All right, Bayou. It is a 5/4 for 2 plant dog. As an additional cost to cast this, sacrifice a creature or pay 3. So it is a 5 mana or 5, unless you sacrifice like a pest token.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times we'll play a 5 mana 5/4
or an eye witch
anyway.
or a frog.
Yeah,
there's a lot of synergy there.
Yeah, I think this card's very good. It's a 5 mana 5/4 is playable on its own, and this just has upside where you can play it on potentially turn 2. Well, that's relatively unlikely, but you could play it on turn 3 probably fairly easily.
Yeah, I think so. And it could be with cards like the frog, like actually beneficial, right?
Yeah, great good with the frog, great with eye twitch.
Any pest things, fractal tokens. Feels like you'll just get a ton of value and actually get to clobber somebody. I can't wait to cast this on 2.
Yeah.
Just go eye twitch into this guy and just like smush them.
Yeah, 2 mana 5/4 draw card.
Yeah. And you have to hit him with the eye twitch first.
Yeah.
Ding. Great. I like this card at like a 3.
Yep, I got it as a 3.
Excellent. Big play. 2 mana. Target creature gets +2/+2, gains reach until end of turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on it. Whoa, okay, so it's +3/+3 the initial turn.
Yeah, +3/+3 reach with one that sticks around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good combat trick. Not great though. Doesn't protect itself. Gets 2 for 1 pretty easily. But it's playable.
Yeah, I mean, as far as combat tricks go in green, I like this a fair amount. I know I'm usually higher on combat tricks than you, but I give this like a 2/5.
Yeah, I have it at a 2, but it's definitely playable and good enough to make your deck.
I'm always going to be a 0.5 point higher on every combat trick than you.
Unless it can double as removal. Like the +2/-2 one.
Yeah, that's true. I was surprised you were as high on that. But you're right, it is just like an instant dead weight or whatever. 7/7 Trampler. Bookworm, cute. Love the flavor. It's an 8 mana 7/7 with trample. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life and draw a card. Ooh, I like that. 3 mana, put Bookworm from your graveyard into your library, 3rd from the top. Okay, can never mill yourself. It's kind of nice.
Yeah.
This seems like it's going to crush some people.
I think this card is really good. I mean, it's 8 mana, so it better be really good. But
Quandrix is where this is at, because they ramp a fair amount.
Yep, this is definitely wants to be in Quandrix. But I think I'd probably play one at the very top end of my Witherbloom deck too. Um, if I didn't have a bunch of sixes, to say, for example.
Yeah, I usually don't mind one like outrageously high creature.
Yeah.
Now 8 is usually much higher than we tend to see. Like I'm usually talking 6, maybe a 7 with like the angel enchantment, or I'm sorry, angel artifact from the last one, but
yeah. But no, I think
how much did Palaka Worm cost?
7?
I think it was 7. That sounds right.
Yeah, it was
right.
7 mana, 7/7. And it gained 7 life.
But you didn't draw a card. I kind of like this better if...
It did when it died.
Oh, it drew a card when it died. Yeah, that's right.
And it was harder to cast because it was green, green, green.
True.
But yeah, I mean, this is definitely a throwback to that card.
Yep. Bookworm is a cute title. What are we thinking score-wise?
I think it's going to be... I think if you resolve this card, it's going to be really hard to lose. But you got to get to 8 mana, so it's not quite a bomb. I think I've got it at like a 3/5.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's... I have it like a 3, unless you're in like Quandrix.
Yeah.
And then I like it at like a 3/5 for sure. If you have any amount of ramp, this card becomes insane. I'm okay with it in any deck at like a 3.
Yeah, I think that's right. And the recursion is not irrelevant. You can, if it gets discarded or something, you can get it back. Like, if they kill it, you get it back. Like, that's not irrelevant. If you can cast it once, you can probably cast it a second time.
That's true. Yeah, the recursion's pretty spicy. The next card, guys, charge through. Target creature gains trample until end of turn. Draw a card. I mean, it replaces itself. You need to have big fat fatties. That worm has trample on its own, right? Didn't it?
Yeah.
So, I feel like this card is supposed to have learn on it.
But it's just part of, like, there's been like kind of a cycle of those that have been printed over time. There was a red one and a blue one. Do like very little, but
draw a card.
But draw a card for 1 mana.
This is not something I'm typically going to be happy to run. If you have some Magecraft in your deck, then maybe, the cycling aspect of it is good enough, but I'm not very happy to run this card.
Yeah, that's the only place I'm putting this, is in a deck with a bunch of Magecraft.
Yeah.
Again, it's not the worst. If you are desperate for playables, this is fine as your 23rd card. It just cycles for 1.
Agreed.
The floor on this card is it cycles for 1, which is not the worst thing in the
I mean, even in a deck with like a bunch of 6/6 that don't trample, like I'm still not super excited to have this.
No, it's low floor, low ceiling, or high floor, low ceiling. Bunch of Magecraft, I'll consider it, or if I'm desperate, but probably like a 1/5.
Agreed. I actually put it as a 1/5, exactly. Perfect. So we have another lesson, guys. 3 mana, destroy target artifact or enchantment. If its mana value is 2 or less, create a 1/1 black-green pest token that when it dies, you gain a life. Seems like a great lesson to have. I want access to this card at all times in any deck that has learn.
Yeah, this is your classic card you're happy to take in your sideboard in a normal set when there aren't lessons. The fact that this is one just makes it better.
Yeah, I typically put these cards that are just strictly sideboard cards as a 1, but I think I've kind of moved them all up to like a 2 to take them over slightly higher, just because of all, like, I think that just having access to them is even better if you can get them in your first game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think it's right what you're saying, right around a 2.
Great. Go ahead and take this one.
Bowering Tendrils, 1 and a green sorcery. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. If that dies this turn, you gain 2 life. So it's a 2 mana punch, not a fight spell, a punch spell. That can also kill a planeswalker in the rare cases that comes up. Yeah, this card's great.
Yeah, I definitely like one-sided fight spells, like you were saying, punch.
2 mana removal. I mean, yeah, you've got to have decent sized creature to kill a decent sized creature, but that's the way green's
normal
works.
Yeah. And sorcery speed's also normal for that. Like, I would love for it not to be, but
but it's cheap enough.
Agreed.
And gaining 2 life is nice.
Far better in this format than in normal.
Yeah, Exactly, yeah, especially in Witherbloom. So yeah, I think this is probably like a 3/5.
Yep, I like a 3/5. Works well with the uncommon 2/5, right? Ramps you up a bunch. Play that on 4. Play this on 5.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Yeah,
nice.
no, that's...
Some good tempo stuff happening there. All right. Dragon Guard Elite. Dragon's Guard. It is a bear at its worst with Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery, put a +1/+1 counter on this card. Double the number of +1/+1 counters on this card for 6 mana. This seems great.
Yeah.
I love this card.
Great.
Even with minimal spells, like if you get 1 or 2 triggers off this, you're ecstatic.
Yeah, as long as you're playing spells you're going to play anyway. I mean, okay, now you've got a 3/3 for 2 mana. It's a great mana sink. There's nothing not to like about this card. It has to be killed.
Yeah, and if you double once, right, it goes to 2 and then to 4 and then they're dead.
Yeah.
If they're not answering it. So any 2 mana spell that can force answers from your opponent is exactly where I want to be, because it's highly impactful early game. It doesn't like clog up your hand with a bunch of like more expensive spells. So I love this card.
Yeah, this is a card I'd be willing to play Charge Through in a deck with this.
Oh, just it gets so big?
Well, just not just for the triple, but just because it's a cheap way to trigger it. Because you need to trigger it once to get the mana sink to work.
Yes. I imagine, with such a low mana cost and it being such a high mana sink, I imagine one spell is not going to be unlikely. Having it stick around before you hit 6 mana, that seems more unlikely.
Agreed. But this is the type of card where I'm willing to play marginal spells to just spell quantity deck.
I tend to not want to do that if I only have like one premium like this, just because then drawing all of your marginal spells with not drawing this just feels like such poop.
Oh, I agree. That's why I will do it with something like Charge Through that'll at least replace itself for 1, but not with something that's actively bad.
Yeah, I agree. What are you thinking score-wise?
I think this is like it's either a 4 or a 4/5.
Okay, I think it's gonna be... It feels a little too easy to remove to me. But maybe I'm wrong. There's just so many exile cards. I guess that's only in black. It will get out of hand very quickly. I agree with that.
I mean, this is a big problem for any non-black deck kill after like 2 triggers.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. If you get to 6 mana, then if you don't have an exile ability, you are in a tough spot.
All right, ecological appreciation. Just 2 green X sorcery. Search your library and graveyard for up to 4 creature cards with different names that each have mana value X or less and reveal them. An opponent chooses 2 of them. Shuffle the 2 your opponent chose into your library and put the rest onto the battlefield. Exile this.
So you get 2 creatures for this.
Yeah, this is kind of like a weird green gifts ungiven for creatures. You have to pick 4 different cards, and your opponent basically picks which 2 you get.
And they go onto the battlefield, which is kind of interesting.
Yes. That you're limited on, how big they can be by X.
Yeah, but it doesn't say, like, normally with these kinds of cards too, you'll see their combined mana will be X, but this is kind of interesting. You just slam it for 4 and you get 4 4-drops potentially.
No, you'd have to play it for 7.
Yeah, I just meant play it for 4 as in X is 4. Yeah.
I mean, this card is terrible until you get to at least 7, probably. At 6, you can get 2 3-drops, but if you have to pick 4 different 3-drops, odds are you're going to get 2 pretty mediocre ones.
Yeah, because you're not typically running that many 3-drops that are very good. And then the other ones get shuffled back in.
It's nice that you can get them out of your graveyard too, so if you draw this really late game, some of your best creatures are already dead, you can still choose them.
Yeah. It is card advantage.
Yes, it is.
It's a pretty nice late game draw. It's not something you are happy to draw early, but late game seems pretty strong. And getting
Yeah.
them, if you happen to target them all out of your graveyard too, it's not like thinning your deck for spells or anything, which is nice.
Yeah.
I'm not excited about
Always
it, but I think it's
no,
playable.
it's playable. If you just have to consider when you're drafting this, you just have to consider this like a 7 spell or higher.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's not getting anything good enough back to justify it.
Yeah,
Although we were
I
just
think
talking about all the ramp and Quandrix and stuff,
yeah,
so
if you with enough ramp, this card can be great. But you need to have a lot of ramp and you need to have a lot of good targets then. Yeah, I think the card is good. I'm probably not gonna cut it unless I'm probably just not gonna cut it in Quandrix.
yeah, definitely not cut. I think this is just a Quandrix card. I don't know if I'm going to run this in the Witherbloom.
Yeah, it'll be context dependent. If I have enough good 4s, I can play this at the top end as a 7.
Yeah. You always have to remember, guys, it's going to be getting back like the two weaker of the 4. So like you have to have at least 3 good creatures. So you're most likely getting 2 mediocre minus creatures, just because there aren't typically that many good ones.
Yeah, whatever the best 2 you have, you're not getting. So
Yeah, now if you have like a fair amount of rares that are cheap, like we saw, like green had a bunch of like 3 mana rares. We just saw that 2 mana rare. So yeah, if you're hitting 4 targets that are not necessarily 4 mana costs, but they're very good cheap ones, cheap rares, then that's even better. But then you have, you don't really care that you need a mythic to go find your 5 rares, because you probably will play them anyway.
yeah, this is gonna be very deck dependent, but I think I've got this around like a 3.
Yeah, originally I had it at a 3-5, but I really don't think I'm playing it in anything other than Quandrix. So
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe 2-5, a little bit lower on it.
It's got really good upside, but there's gonna be decks you don't play it at all, and there's gonna be games where it's just dead.
Yeah, I agree. Play says it technically mana fixes. You could go search out your splash cards, get them into play, if your opponent lets you have them, though. All right. Emergent sequence. We've got a 2 mana sorcery. Search your library for a basic land. Put it onto the battlefield. Tap. Then shuffle. That land becomes a 0/0 green blue fractal with put a +1/+1 counter on it for each land you had enter the battlefield under your control this turn. Okay. So it's a 2/2, most likely. Like if you play a land and then cast this, you have a 2/2 land. Maybe more if you have other ramp spells.
Yep, it's probably a 2/2. It does ramp you because the creature is still a land.
Mm-hmm. Fixes you.
Fixes you. Yeah, now granted that land is much easier. It's much easier to kill that land.
If they're spending their burn spells on a land, like I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm okay with this card. 2 mana ramp is generally that doesn't get printed anymore like rampant growth types of fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've got this at like a 3.
I agree with that. I like a 3.
It's also good that it's as a late game card, it's not completely dead like ramp sometimes is, because at least it makes a body.
Yeah.
Might be a 1/1 at that point, but it's better than just getting a land.
Yeah, we're not even talking about any of the actual like land synergies where potentially you could have more lands come into play that turn, because that's what Quandrix does.
Yeah.
There's a growth spiral in the fancy set. Like there's a lot of options.
Yep.
So until end of turn, double target creature's power X times. Oh, okay. So if X is it's double it
4 mana
twice.
Yeah. 4 mana, double it. 6 mana, double it twice or quadruple it. 8 mana, it becomes 8 times.
I mean, it's sorcery speed, so
Yeah, it's a finisher. I mean, it's a powerful card. So if you've got you need something with trample for it to be any use, really.
yeah. Or a fair amount of flying creatures, which we don't think we'll have in these colors, really.
No, that's true, but green-blue you could have some. Or you could even play it on that, was it that 2/1 that you could pay 2 life to give it flying? When it attacks? In black?
Oh, yeah, and black. I see.
Yeah, so that's quickly becomes an 8. For 6 mana, that becomes an 8/1.
Then they kill it with the just -2 or +2 -2 spell, or a shock, or a bolt, or a helix, or like this just I hate these really massive sorcery speed pump spells. They always feel so bad to me.
Yeah, I think you're gonna play this card just because it is its power is, you can't deny how powerful it is, but it is very vulnerable.
It's like, it's vulnerable, and you have to have such a specific situation on the board for it to be relevant. Like a flyer that they can't block. Even if you have more creatures than them, you have to cast it first, so then they just block it with their pest token and then let the other one go through. So, or they need to have like no creatures on board, or you need to be able to cast this plus remove their blocker. It's just so situational. Or trample, albeit if you have trample in your deck, this goes up a fair amount. But in the general thing, and we haven't seen a ton of that kind of trample text on our cards. We saw a spell that did it, but we really want the mana for this, so
we can make our 7/7 worm into like a 28/28.
Yeah, if you have the worm, sure, maybe run this rare. But I feel like if you have the worm and they can't remove it, you're probably winning anyway.
Probably true. Although if you have the worm, you have 8 mana, so you can cast this for 8 and make it a 56/56.
Oh god. Yeah, so I mean, I'm not a huge fan of this card. I have it pretty low. 2?
I have it higher than that. I think it has the potential to win games, and a lot of times it's still going to at least trade 1-for-1 by forcing them to chump something. You might not get a great card out of it,
or burn it in response, or kill it in response, and be a 2-for-1.
Oh, yeah, but that's true for, if that's the case, I wouldn't play any combat tricks ever or anything.
And we usually don't. You usually rate them at unplayable.
Yeah, but this has such a high impact, high upside that those cards don't. I don't think this is great, but I think it's a little higher than that. I've got it at like a 2/5, leaning a little higher, but I have it at 5.
All right, I can be convinced for 2/5, but I'm definitely leaning lower.
Sure.
This card's gonna feel super bad. All right, field trip, guys. 3 mana, search your library for a basic forest card, put that onto the battlefield, tap, then learn. Ooh, I like this. 3 mana ramp spell that gets you its card back. It gets you a learn spell. Lesson.
Yeah, fine with that. Doesn't fix, which is unfortunate, but
agreed.
That's okay. You get your card back and get a land into play. Yeah, that's what Quadrix wants to be doing. Yeah, not a super impactful card though. It's probably like a 2/5.
Yeah, I think it's a 2/5, and then I think it's one of the better of the learn spells if you have lessons worth getting.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm certainly happier to run this than I am most of the learns we've seen so far.
Yeah, I think so.
Fortifying Drought, 1 mana, you gain 2 life. Target creature gets +X/+X, where X is the amount of life you've gained this turn. So it is a 1 mana +2/+2 at its base.
Yep.
Which is fine. Fine minus.
Yeah, it's fine minus. I like that. But it can trigger other things. For your black-green deck. Affect other life gain stuff. So even if this is only +2/+2, maybe you can do some stuff after combat.
Yeah, I mean, I'd still rather be running either of the like more hexproofy ones for 1 mana, right? The indestructible, or they reprinted the green one as well at uncommon in the fancy set.
This is definitely worse than those. I'm probably not playing it unless I have the life gain synergies. At least a couple.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely times where I feel like I'll probably just have room for a 2 mana +2, a 1 mana +2/+2.
Yeah.
Not often. I won't be happy about it, but I think it's probably playable in the 2 range.
Yeah, I think it's right around 2. It's playable, but gonna get cut a lot, I think.
Gnarled Professor, 4 mana 5/4 with trample. When it enters the battlefield, you learn.
Yeah, this card's great.
The flavor text is class is in session. Yeah, this card seems really powerful.
I mean, we'd play a 4-mana 5/4 trampler anyway at like a 2/5 to a 3, so
Yeah.
replaces itself. Great.
I mean, there's sets where vanilla 4/4 for 4 with no trample is like a 3 sometimes, 2/5.
Oh yeah, I mean, was it in Eldraine, the 4-mana 4/4 that made a food was green's best common.
Right? Yeah. I mean, granted, this is a rare, but this feels better than the black rares that we were seeing that seemed super low impact.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think this card's like a solid 4.
I agree. The learn really pushes it over the top.
Yeah, the fact that if they kill it, 1-for-1 with the removal spell, you've still gotten some value out of it.
Yeah,
makes it.
Yeah. It's strong enough that it requires solid removal, and then it's also just added bonus. Even if your learn card is poopy, and if they don't answer it, it kills them because it's pretty strong pretty early.
Wow, chat is spamming bad joke.
That's what you get for reading Twitch chat. Oh, was it classes in season? I see.
Yeah.
It's so tiny on my screen, guys. Honor Troll, 3 mana, 2/3. So at its base, it's a 2. It's got vigilance. It's pretty nice. Whenever you would gain life, you gain that much +1 instead. Honor Troll gets +2/+2/+1 as long as you have 25 or more life. That's pretty low, all things considered. Holy shit. This card seems awesome.
Yeah,
I'm borderline surprised this is just an uncommon after how low impact those black rares were.
That's true. I just don't know. I guess I don't know. I mean, the life gain decks when they have those minimums, they always seem to rarely actually work for me. But 25 is low. I will grant that.
Plus, it has a built-in way of helping you hit it.
Yes.
And at its base, it's a 2/3 for 3 with vigilance.
Oh yeah, it's a fine card to play anyway. I think I've got this at like a 3.
All right, well, yeah, in a deck in Quandrix, it's a 3. In Witherbloom, it's probably a bit more.
Yeah, I'm thinking in Quandrix it's like a 2/5, and in Witherbloom it's like a 3/5. So I've got it in the middle.
Yeah. 3 with some upside. I think if you're in Witherbloom, this is probably just a 3/5. I think.
Yeah,
there's enough triggers that even just like the pests, right? They just make pests way better.
Yeah, I think it's very good in Witherbloom. I think it's borderline playable in Quandrix.
I don't know. We're seeing a lot of just green life gain.
Yeah.
Surprisingly enough, like the combat tricks and the lesson gained life, didn't it? There's a couple of them. We have a 3/3 for 4 Magecraft. Whenever you cast blah 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 blah, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It's nice that it's any creature. It's not just this.
Yeah, it's expensive, right? 5 mana 3/3, but
yeah,
I think you need to. If you get 1 trigger out of this, you're still
behind.
Not very happy. I think you still need 2.
Yeah.
The fact that you can put them on other creatures might make them a little more valuable, so it's more like 1.5 probably.
I was actually going to say the exact same thing, but we would expect, like in the last set, it was like a 5/5 elf for 5, right? But the fact that you can move it around, you do need 1 trigger off of this. So it is a bit overpriced, I think, for what you get.
Yeah. And neither green deck is like a spells themed deck. Now they've got plenty of spells, but it's not their theme, and neither is counters really. Although the fractal tokens, I guess, do have counter. I think this card's fine, but you're gonna need to have enough triggers.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not a huge fan of it. I got it at like a 2/5.
Yeah, I do too. It's a really bad top deck late in the game when you're hellbent.
Yeah. And it's a little it's just too expensive. And I think you need like you said, 1.5 spells for it to like pull its own weight, and it doesn't start to give you good value until you get to like the 4 spell range.
Yeah.
So like that's just a lot of things that need to happen. If it stays on the battlefield forever and they never touch it and you have a stalled board, that'll be good. But
yeah, they do need to kill it. You know, especially if you have cards in hand when you play it. But
all right, a leyline. Create a 0/0 green fractal creature token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of lands you control. This is that math side of Quandrix, where cards make you count certain things on the board. Cards in graveyard, cards all over the place, wherever, lands. So I think this is pretty good.
yeah,
if you have the ramp.
Yeah, I mean, you figure you're getting a 6-mana 6/6. You know, a lot of the time, because you probably have 6 lands out if you're casting this.
Yes. Now Quandrix is ramping very quickly. We've seen a ton of like common good ramp spells. There's Growth Spiral, and I'm sure that the Quandrix multicolor cards will also have a fair amount because that's kind of what they want to do. So you could be making a 5-mana 6/6 on like turn 4, 5 pretty regularly.
Yeah, in late game you could be making a 6-mana 10/10.
Yep.
I like this card. I don't think you're going to want to play multiples really because you've got a lot of options at the top end for Quandrix, but I think this is a good card.
Yeah, I think this is exactly what Quandrix wants to do, and it's going to be borderline unplayable in the Witherbloom deck.
Yes, agreed.
So it feels almost like a split card, right? It's going to be like a 2 if you're desperate in Witherbloom, or like a 3, because it pairs so well with exactly what Quandrix is doing. The ramp gets you the creature early and big, and then it just gets bigger and bigger. So, I mean, I kind of like it.
Yeah, I think I've got it. Kind of like you're saying, it's like a 2/3/5, maybe 3.
Yeah.
It is just a vanilla creature. But it could be really large.
It could be really large, really fast.
Yeah.
It just happens to be exactly what Quandrix is in the business for.
Yep.
Mage Duel, a 3-mana sorcery spell. This spell costs 2 less if you've cast another instant or sorcery this turn. Target creature gets +2/+1 until end of turn. Then fights target creature you don't control. Oh. It's just a 3-mana +2/+1 fight spell? Or sorry, +1/+2 fight spell that potentially gets even cheaper? This seems great.
Yeah, this card's fantastic. You know, only costs 1 if you cast something else, so you can you cast another instant or sorcery, so you can ramp into this. You play a ramp spell, you know, play your field trip on turn 4, get a 5th land out, and then play this for 1 to kill something.
I mean, +2/+1 for 3 mana with a fight seems good on its own. Like, even if you never see that other, like, clause.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think this is like a 3/5.
Yeah, it's always hard to rate, you know, green even though this is like close to what green's premium removal is. It's hard to rate it out of 4 because that's just what the better removal spells in black and red are. So I think it's going to be very top tier for the green decks, but definitely not as good as the you know, black and red removal. So Master, we got a 4/4 for 4 with reach. Whenever a creature you control with power equal whenever a creature you control with power equal to its toughness attacks, it gains trample. So not weirdly lopsided cards. Brainiac, welcome.
Yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a weird mini theme in Quandrix. There's a couple cards that like care about things being symmetrical, power and toughness. Like this.
That is a weird sub theme, I'll agree.
I think there's a blue-green card that turns something into like a 2/2 or 3/3 or something like that, called like Square Up or you know, so it's an interesting theme. It does, you know, it does let your fractal tokens attack with trample.
Yeah, it just rewards you for putting this in the colors it was designed for versus putting it in like the Witherbloom deck.
Yeah, agreed. I think this card is really good though. 4 mana 4/4
with reach.
with trample, because the only time you care about trample is when it attacks anyway.
Yeah, that's true. It just gives itself that ability for sure every time.
So, I mean, we pretty happy with 4 mana 4/4s with no abilities, and then you get 2 abilities and one that can help,
Other
your
things.
get through. I mean, card's borderline a 4 for I think it's probably a 3/5, but it's up there.
Yeah, I think it's about a 3/5. There is removal spells that do 4, so it's moderately easy to remove.
Yep.
If you are in, it's probably got some good upside if you're making some decently sized fractal tokens, but just on its face, I think it's a 3/5 on its own.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And a lot of, like, if you're in the Witherbloom deck, right, you're not really making creatures large enough for trample to come into play.
Yeah, you're just relying on the green side of the mono green side of that, probably.
Yeah. All right, moving right along. Overgrowth Arch. It is a 0/4 defender for 2 that gains you a life, and you can sacrifice it to learn. This does everything I want to do in the Witherbloom deck.
Yeah, we have cards like this fairly often, like a wall that you can sacrifice to draw a card or veil or do something with the ability mechanic.
But this is slightly better in that it does fill a lot of the requirements for, like, this with the 2 the 3, the 2 3 for 3, like, is going to be nuts. You just gain a life every turn, turn that thing on. It'll work wonders for your Witherbloom. There's 2 Witherbloom uncommons that every time you gain a life, you drain or something. So I'm not saying it's a good card that you should be running in all of decks.
Sure.
It's going to be a highly synergistic card, so it's like a split 1/3. Because in the decks that it's good in, it's going to be very good. It's going to be a key piece to make your deck run.
Yeah, don't disagree with any of that. Probably never playing this card in Quandrix. Unless I've got a whole bunch of really good lessons.
Yeah. I mean, I could see running this with the 2 of the 3 2s or something as well.
But I'll play it, and it's definitely play this in Witherbloom.
Is it 2/5 or 3, you think, on the top end for Witherbloom? With life gain things, synergies?
I think it's a 2/5 just because it needs, it's still useless on its own without those synergies. But if you got a lot of them, it goes up, but you need to have them.
Well, it also has the backup plan of just sacking for the learn. I could definitely see putting this in the sideboard too against more aggressive decks. It blocks the 3/2 Lorenhold spirits. It end of turn, gain a life every turn, can definitely brick. Sometimes 3 to 4 life can be all it takes to just stonewall an aggressive deck to stabilize and get there. And then you sacrifice, get a little burn spell or a little mediocre lesson, and then you just call it a day.
Yeah, this is a good sideboard card.
All right. Professor of Zoomancy. I like how this is the first bear not getting punched or suplexed. So that's nice. Bears get a break today.
It's also just out of theme. It's a bear and it's not a 2/2.
Oh, what? That's rude flavoring. So it's a 4/3 for 4. Whenever the professor enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 pest. Whenever this creature dies, you gain a life. Okay, so it's pretty decent rate. Yeah, it's a 5/4 power, right, for 4 mana. Synergize as well.
Yeah, you're happy with that rate. It's over 2 bodies. You get a pest, which synergizes with your Witherbloom stuff.
Feels good for a common.
Yep, the flavor text is awfully punny.
Overbearing. I like this out of 3. It feels strong for a common. Yep. Pretty happy to fill my deck with like curve rounding things of this power.
Pretty simple card, but good.
All right. We have a 2/2 for 2 for 5 mana. You double its power and toughness until end of turn. That's an okay mana sink for a curve filling 2-drop.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically all it is. It's a for a filler that is not completely dead late game.
Great.
At least attack for 4 or more if you can pump it.
This could be pretty like powerful in a Quandrix deck where like you end up with a ton of ramp, and then this becomes like a threat moderately fast, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, if you somehow, if you're to draw this late game and you have 10 mana, you can make it an 8/8. I mean, no, that's a lot, but it's not a situation that's impossible.
Yeah, certainly not in Quandrix especially. Damina, thank you so much. Appreciate the 46 months of support. Yeah, I have it at like a 2/5.
2/5, yep. Bear with reasonable upside.
Great, the cutest card ever. I want one. We have a 2/2 with reach for 2. It gets +2/+2 as long as you control 8 or more lands. This feels slightly more powerful.
Yep. It's like kind of a better version of the last card.
Yep, and it's also at common. This feels really strong. Like this is the type of card I am now happy to fill my deck with. For those of you guys who've never seen my articles before or set reviews, so like the 1 is unplayable, 2 is the cards that you are unhappy to run but end up making your deck if you're slightly short on playables that you'll play sometimes. 3 is like, okay, good, this is a good pickup. This fills out my curve. This makes, things smooth, and it carries its own weight and power. And then 4 is like premium removal and like powerful cards that can tip scales, and then 5s are bombs that win you games if they are unanswered, which there are typically not very many per set. All right, moving on. We have a vanilla 2/4 for 3. We tend to see these in limited sets, but not super often. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, I think it's just the 2.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Curve filler if you need it, but definitely never happy to run it.
Yep. No synergies, nothing. 2/4.
3/2 for 3, and when it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life. That's kind of normal. We've seen that exact card quite often with a different name, I think.
Yeah, it's always an elk.
Yeah, I think so.
There was the 2 mana 2/1 that did it when it died. Like
there was definitely a 3/2 that gained it when it entered.
Yeah, but they're all seem to be elk. Elks gain life.
I always think that they're just like 2s. Because I don't usually care that much about the life gain. There's a chance that it might be slightly better in this format with all of the life gain triggers and synergies. There are cards that do stuff like the uncommon. When you get to 25 life, that'll maybe make this better if you got a couple of those. As well as the life bloom things that triggers happen on cards when you gain life. It might make this draw mid to late game even more valuable. So
yeah, these cards are usually just mediocre 2s because green is not usually part of the life gain deck. It's usually black-white.
Yep, so I could see this having a fair amount of upside, but not more to where I'm willing to rate it with that upside.
Yeah.
Tangle Trap, 2 mana, choose 1. It deals 5 damage to target creature with flying or destroy target artifact. Sideboard card.
Yep, sideboard card. Not the end of the world if you have to put this in your main deck as your 23rd card. With tokens and treasure tokens flying around, you'll find something to hit with it, but yeah, it's a sideboard card.
All right, and the last card in green, guys. Oh wait, someone said it's an amazing flavor text. I want to read it.
Yeah.
It's like that old saying, what goes up feeds the okay. It eats the flyers. What goes up feeds the arboretum. Witherbloom Dean. Got it. Not as good as the bear pun, but I'll take it. All right, tiny text, go for it.
Yep. Verdant Mastery, 5 and a green sorcery. You can pay 3 and a green rather than pay this spell's mana cost. Search your library for up to 4 basics and reveal them. Put one of them onto the battlefield tapped under an opponent's control if you paid 4 to cast the spell. Put 2 of them onto the battlefield tapped under your control and the rest into your hand. Then shuffle. So if you pay 6, you get 4 lands out of your deck. 2 of them tapped into play and the other 2 in your hand. If you pay 4, you do the same thing, except only one of them goes to your hand and one goes under your opponent's control.
Got it. Which could be okay late game. We might not care that much.
Yeah, this is one of the rare one of these alternate costs that I can actually see casting it for the alternate cost at times.
Yeah, I agree. Especially if they're like a more aggressive deck than you. Like most decks aren't going to have like the huge 8 mana payoffs, right? Like we're definitely not casting it for the alternate cost against Prismati, but against Lorenhold, against Witherbloom even. I mean, sure, against the Inkling decks.
Yeah, I'm probably willing to play this for 4 against Lorehold or Silverquill
Yeah, definitely.
in particular. Especially if I've got some 6, 7 mana spells that I can then untap and play a 7-drop the next turn.
Agreed. I mean, that said, it's still very expensive, and I mean, only one deck wants this. The average deck does not want this.
No.
So this does seem like a split card to me. It's like a 1/3.
Yeah.
Maybe a 1, 2.5.
5. Yeah, the 3 is probably just too expensive for it to be 3.
Yeah.
I think all of these alternate cost cards are kind of designed with Commander in mind, because it lets you give stuff to, it lets you affect one opponent.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense.
Which isn't that bad in like a 4-player game, but limited, not so much.
Great. That is the end of our green, guys. We are going to be continuing on in the next video, which if you guys are watching this on YouTube, should already be up. So make sure you guys go check that out. If you guys are watching this on Twitch, thank you very much for, well, I don't need to say goodbye to them, huh? They're going to stay. Yeah, if you're watching this on Twitch, just stay. We're going to keep going. I'd like to give a special thank you to those of you who have signed up for our Patreon. I couldn't make this content without you. Also to Cool Stuff Inc. and KMC Sleeves for supporting the channel as well. Definitely check them out and use our discount codes to support the channel.